Okay, so let's talk now about, okay, higher prices, I'm paying more for my premiums. What can we do to try and lower those premiums? We have talked about, deductibles, that's kind of like a common one, but let's kind of, have you seen any creative ways that people are getting kind of around high coverage, things like that?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing you can do is shop your insurance. And
Mhm.
I will say that we see that a fair amount of people say, "Hey, can you find something better for me?" Um, so that is an option. Uh, However, I will say that this year especially, that option has not been kind of the silver bullet to save costs. I did a little bit of digging on this, and no surprise that the amount of people that are shopping is up fairly dramatically, just because everyone's getting these 30-40% increases, and so they're looking at other places. What I did find interesting, though, is that the amount of people that are actually switching is closer to like 40%. So it's less than half. So logic would tell you, well, if my price is going up 40%, more people are shopping, that number should be 60, 70, 80, 90% because people are going to find something somewhere. And the answer is no, it's not. I would say on the auto side, collision deductible, that's a controllable one that you can increase as well. There's a comprehensive deductible, but typically those prices are not terribly high. So increasing it doesn't save you a whole lot. Liability, that's the price is the price. But yeah, collision deductibles and homeowner deductibles are the two big things that I would say are really the ways you can save money. One thing with the insurance industry, it's been around for a long time, it's pretty thorough. Not a lot of loopholes there, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of places that people can go, and the insurance company's like, "Man, I didn't see that. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
You did a good job. You got us on that one." So, I mean, I've seen people. One I've seen a fair amount of is as kids get older and they graduate college and they get their own cars, they might move out and then they keep the car on mom and dad's policy.
Okay.
Don't do that,
Mhm.
because especially the way the auto insurance works is it is for someone who is a household resident, and the car is titled in the name of a household resident. And if you've moved out of mom and dad's house, you're not a household resident. And if the car's in your name, the insurance policy is in mom and dad's name, right? And so
Mhm.
if you have a claim, I don't think that there's coverage. So um, is it cheaper? Probably, because mom and dad have been around for a while. They have multiple cars, they have a home, etc.
Mhm.
But you're going to basically end up not having coverage in that
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, people again, they drop coverage, they'll drop collision from their auto policy. But again, if you do that, which you certainly can do, um, if you have an accident, you're going to pay repairs, or if it's totaled, you're going to pay the car, to replace the car out of pocket. So
Yeah.
um, I
Have
guess if you're going to do it, I would talk to an agent first just
Mhm.
to see what the ramifications are going to be.
Yeah.
But as far as like, yeah, creative ways that aren't going to potentially bite them, I don't know that I've seen any.
Okay. No, that's interesting. So let's talk about some even kind of like what I should not do. We've kind of, touched on a couple,
Hmm.
what people shouldn't do or like common mistakes that you see, just anything that you're kind of seeing now or just in general, just as reminders.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that we're seeing is um, either removing coverage, or I've seen some people just stop coverage completely.
Mm.
That I definitely would not recommend, for obvious reasons as far as a claim. However, the other part of that is if at some point, a lot of times it's with auto, right?
Mhm.
They say, "Hey, I'm not driving all that much, going to the grocery store and church, and that's it. I'm just going to let the policy lapse and sort of roll the dice because I'm not really on the road very much."
Mm.
One, obviously, if you have a claim, then you're in trouble. But two, if at some point you decide that you do want to get coverage again, now you have a gap in coverage. And companies don't like gaps in coverage at all. And so if you were with company A for a long time and you cancel it and you have a gap in coverage, there's a really good chance that company A is not going to write you again. And be like, "Oh, I was with you 10 years. Well, you weren't with us for the last 6 months." And so you then have to go to a non-standard company and you're going to pay more anyway. So you see a little bit of that. Um, but I'm trying to think. Yeah, the other ones, like I said, I mentioned as far as like removing coverage deductibles and holding off on kids driving, things like that. Those are the main
Mhm.
things that we're seeing.
Okay.
There might be other things out there that I'm just not aware of. They don't want to
Yeah.
share that stuff with me.
Yeah. Like, right.
But
Yeah.
right, but those are the main things I'm seeing.
Okay. All right. No, that's helpful. Another good question I think for people just to, hear is what life changes that, people experience should prompt people to look at, changes in their coverage. So things that
Hmm.
happen.
Yeah, the big one again I mentioned is youthful drivers.
Hmm.
And what I would say on that is, and what I've told a lot of people is, um, there's two main coverages that are impacted with youthful drivers. The first one is liability because they hit stuff and damage other things, and the other one is collision because they hit stuff and damage your own car.
Hmm.
The liability side you really can't change. I've had people try and they want to lower their liability limit, which is very dangerous, and honestly doesn't really change the price that much.
Okay.
Um, Collision, you can have some control over that, and a lot of times what I would say is, a lot of people have a $500 deductible for their collision. That's pretty standard. I would go to 1,000. I go to 1,500. I think I'm a youthful driver. I think we're at 1,500 or $2,000 for collision coverage. That you can look at. The other thing would be, again, if you have a child who's driving an older vehicle, you can take collision off. If the thing's worth $5,000 and you have $5,000 in the bank, you can take collision off and roll the dice. I just had that conversation with a client recently, and they're like, "Well, if I have a claim and it gets totaled, it's not terrible. We got him an old junky car for a reason, right?" And so
Hmm.
that's another thing that you can do, and I would say you could adjust that.
Okay.
That's probably the big one. The other one I saw, and this is probably not a lot of people, but I just had this, so I thought I'd mention it. It's more on the other end of the spectrum. People that maybe are retired or close to retirement that have like a couple of homes and a couple of vehicles.
Yeah.
I have one client who has a second vehicle, and they leave it up at their lake house up in Wisconsin, but they're only there 6 months out of the year. And they said, "Well, can we take coverage off? It's just sitting in the garage." And the answer is actually, yeah, you can. We call it winterizing it.
Yeah.
Layup. There's different names for it, but basically
Hmm.
just keep comprehensive coverage on it, which is $100, $200 a year. So if it gets
Hmm.
stolen or vandalized or the house burns down and it's damaged, you have coverage from that, but everything else is taken off until you then go back up there and use it. So, and that can save you I think this person saved, I don't know, $800 or something like that. So
Wow.
it's significant. So that's another life change. I don't know if that's the word that I would use, but a
Hmm.
circumstance which lends itself to a place that you could possibly save money. That's another one that I did see that we can do, and it does save you money.
Okay. No, that's helpful. Okay. One situation I kind of heard of recently, we're just going to kind of touch on a little bit, like in the claims